In contrast to the various inadequate theories proposed by evolutionists involving at least 30 separate ice ages over 2.5 million years, a worldwide flood provides an excellent mechanism for the single known ice age. This monumental flood, likely fed by subterranean water exploding like a malfunctioning pressure cooker from the newly cracked and still existing 46,000 miles of mid-oceanic rift zone surrounding Earth like the seams on a baseball, would have spawned megavolcanoes from the same tectonic fractures. More than 50% of the world's active and dormant volcanoes remain as part of the Pacific Ocean's Ring of Fire, which is a nearly continuous 25,000-mile horseshoe-shaped belt of deep trenches, thick lava flows, 452 volcanic arcs, 40,000 submarine volcanoes called seamounts that are taller than 1 kilometer, and shifting tectonic plates that cause 90% of our planet's earthquakes. When fully active, these megavolcanoes would have supercooled the atmosphere by propelling a massive sun-blocking and reflecting deluge of ash and aerosol skyward for a significant period of time. The tremendous lava flow from these volcanoes would have also greatly heated the ocean surface to more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit, according to scientists. This intensely heated ocean water would have promoted unprecedented runaway evaporation and continual gigantic hurricanes called hypercanes that drop voluminous snowfall in polar and then cooler middle latitudes. Ultimately, the frozen ice age sheets covered about 30% of Earth's surface, leaving most of the continental area for development of early post-flood empires such as Babylon, Egypt, Greece, and China. Not surprising to the biblical worldview, in 2018, secular researchers found evidence of a spike in volcanic activity and rapid release of tremendous amounts of carbon dioxide at precisely the time when the worldwide flood occurred, confirming the creationist model. Scientists have also shown that, on average, sulfuric ash belched into the stratosphere from a single large volcanic eruption can cause global cooling between 1 and 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit for several years. The Great Toba Sumatra eruption is believed to have lowered the average global temperature 6.3 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 years. The Tambora, Indonesia eruption in 1816 caused the so-called Year Without a Summer in the northeastern United States, which involved an unusual series of cold spells, heavy snowfall in June, and crop-killing frost in July and August. There's good evidence that eruptions during the post-flood ice age were much larger and more numerous than those in modern times. In support of this, the Ice Age portion of Greenland ice cores capture evidence of 1,927 separate volcanic events which occurred during that period. Just one example of past volcanic strength was discovered by scientists studying the flood-age Columbia River basalt group formation in the northwestern U.S., which demonstrated that as many as 300 individual lava flows engulfed and covered 63,000 square miles of the landscape to a depth greater than 1.1 miles. Other studies have shown that ash deposited by the single post-flood Huckleberry Ridge eruption in Yellowstone Park, Wyoming, was 2,500 times greater than that produced by mighty Mount St. Helens. On the Deccan Plateau in western India, a 200,000 square mile area was flooded with a 3/4 mile thick layer of lava. Even larger lava flows have been found in southwestern Siberia and on the Pacific Ocean floor, where there is evidence of lava discharges 4 times greater than the Deccan Plateau flow. An absolutely enormous past eruption in the South Pacific Ocean near New Zealand spread a thick ash layer over a 4 million square mile area and would have effectively darkened the entire planet for several months, causing tremendous continental cooling. Overall, it's been estimated the lava volume spilled on the ocean floor is about 1,000 times greater than what is collectively produced by land volcanoes. The ocean warming, precipitation forming, and continental cooling effect of many land and marine megavolcanoes simultaneously spewing superhot lava and sun-blocking ash would have been substantial enough to spawn and sustain an ice age for a few hundred years. Also interesting is the fact that written records from many cultures which existed after the worldwide flood have reported the climate was incredibly cold with self-described evil winters, extreme volcanism, earthquakes, mountain shaping, and endless dark clouds that dropped, in their words, much hail and black rain. According to the observations of these early post-flood civilizations, sunlight did not return till the 26th year after the flood. Likewise, the biblical Job, who lived several generations after the global flood during the later years of the centuries-long ice age, used much icy, frosty, and snowy language to describe the climate north of his homeland. All these independent written reports are entirely consistent with the scientific evidence and biblical post-flood model for the Ice Age. Also relevant to the Ice Age model is the fact that a lost squadron of 8 World War II fighter planes forced to crash onto an eastern Greenland ice sheet 18 miles from the ocean were recovered by a wealthy collector less than 50 years later, buried under a remarkable 250 feet of ice, which in contrast to evolutionary expectations, verifies that thick ice layers can indeed form quickly. Scientific experiments have shown the planes couldn't have sunk through the ice by collecting solar radiation, so they were actually covered by this significant depth of frozen precipitation. The seemingly mysterious presence of numerous ancient underwater buildings discovered just offshore from current coastlines is also easily explained by a biblical ice age, which would have removed so much water through unprecedented evaporation and frozen precipitation trapped as ice on then cooler land masses that the ocean surrounding continents would have dropped as much as 500 feet, according to scientific researchers. Just as we do today, post-flood civilizations built structures near coastlines, which was fine until the global climatic influence of volcanism waned about 500 years after the Ice Age started, and monumental ice sheets began to melt back into oceans and other water bodies, raising their surface levels and eventually submerging the buildings. Based on the Earth's topography, lowering ocean levels a few hundred feet would have also exposed land bridges between continents, including Australia, allowing easy and extensive migration for post-flood civilizations and animals. Also interesting is the fact that secular researchers have recently discovered the modern Sahara Desert area was filled with swamps, lakes, and several Nile-sized channels, supporting enough freshwater fish that post-Ice Age humans who lived in the area caught them with fish hooks and harpoons. Based largely on extensive rock artwork depicting literally thousands of native creatures, the savanna-like environment was apparently lush enough to support animals like elephants, giraffes, antelopes, hippos, rhinos, and huge herds of cattle, as well as crocodiles, amphibians, fish, clams, and other aquatic organisms. There is also abundant evidence that the now semi-arid and sometimes blistering hot Great Basin in the southwestern United States was once flourishing with vegetation well watered by about 120 separate lakes, including Lake Bonneville, which was nearly the size of Lake Michigan, and Lake Lahontan, which equaled the size of Lake Erie. Torching hot Death Valley within the Great Basin also contained a lake approximately 600 feet deep, as made obvious by the noticeable shoreline still visible along the valley side slopes. Topography dictates that a series of smaller lakes in southeast California flowed into the Death Valley Lake during the Ice Age. Another indicator of a very wet past is Lake Chad in northern Africa, which was once more than 600 miles long and required a water source 16 times greater than it currently receives to maintain this size. While surprising to evolutionists, this evidence nicely matches the expected effects of a biblical flood that left enormous remnant water bodies whose levels were maintained by an ice age that dropped extreme amounts of snow in cooler upper latitudes plus abundant rain in lower latitudes about 4,000 years ago. Some regions then slowly transitioned to deserts and arid environments in the ensuing centuries, characterized by greatly reduced precipitation once the climate-changing influence of megavolcanoes waned.